Somewhere in Kentucky right now, a factory that's been building one of America's best-selling SUVs is quietly getting ripped apart to make something else entirely, and that SUV wasn't even struggling. Its sales were climbing. That's what most people miss about 2026's wave of discontinuations. This isn't a story about failure. Automakers are walking away from SUVs with loyal owners and strong reputations because of factory conversions. If you own one of these 7 SUVs or you're shopping for one right now, this affects your resale value and parts availability. So let's start with number 7. 7. Dodge Hornet. The Dodge Hornet barely got a chance to prove itself before it was gone. Built in Italy alongside its close cousin, the Alfa Romeo Tonale, the Hornet launched with real ambition, a genuinely quick performance variant, sharp styling, and Dodge's attempt to plant a flag in the compact crossover segment for the first time in years. Instead, it lasted just 3 model years before production quietly paused last summer and the model was formally pronounced dead in January of 2026. Here's what killed it, and it's a combination most shoppers never think about when they're comparing SUVs on a lot. Significant import tariffs on vehicles built overseas made the Hornet dramatically more expensive to bring into the country than a domestically produced competitor, eating into margins that were already thin because of soft demand. Add in the ongoing turbulence inside the Dodge brand itself, which has been realigning its entire lineup around performance nameplates rather than crossovers, and the Hornet simply didn't have a strong enough case to survive the cut. As of early 2026, dealer inventory nationwide had shrunk to just a few hundred delivery mileage units left to sell. There's a broader story unfolding underneath this specific cancellation that's worth understanding. Dodge has spent the last several years narrowing its identity down to muscle-focused performance vehicles, doubling down on the nameplates that built the brand's reputation in the first place, rather than chasing crossover buyers the way most of the rest of the industry has. The Hornet was essentially an experiment in stepping outside that lane, sharing a platform and factory with Alfa Romeo's Tonale to keep development costs manageable. When tariffs made that shared platform math stop working, there wasn't a deep well of crossover loyalty within the Dodge fanbase to fall back on, the way there might have been for a brand that had spent decades building trust in that segment. Here's the detail that matters if you already own one. A vehicle killed this early in its life cycle, with this few units ever sold, tends to become a parts and resale wildcard down the road. Fewer Hornets on the road means dealership service departments stock fewer specific parts, and independent mechanics have less hands-on experience with the platform. That's not a crisis, but it is something worth budgeting for if you're planning to keep one long-term. There's also a pricing quirk worth knowing about if you're shopping the used market. Because so few Hornets were ever built, current asking prices on remaining new inventory have actually crept up, rather than collapsed the way you'd expect from a discontinued model. One example spotted on a dealer lot recently, a white all-wheel drive GT trim, carried a sticker of just over $30,000, slightly higher than the equivalent 2025 model's advertised starting price. That's the opposite of the fire sale discount buyers usually expect once a nameplate gets the axe, and it's a reminder that scarcity can cut both ways depending on how a manufacturer chooses to clear out its remaining stock. The next SUV on this list wasn't killed by tariffs. It was killed by its own sister model, outselling it 7-1. BMW X7. It's BMW's flagship SUV, their direct answer to the Mercedes GLS and Cadillac Escalade. It's massive, luxurious, powerful, and absolutely loaded with cutting-edge technology. It's also one of the worst financial decisions you could possibly make in the luxury SUV segment, and here's exactly why. The X7 represents German over-engineering at its absolute worst. This SUV is crammed with so much technology, so many electronic systems, and so many potential failure points that it's essentially a ticking time bomb of expensive repairs. The air suspension that provides that magic carpet ride when it's functioning properly, it's incredibly complex and notoriously failure-prone, with repairs easily costing several $1,000s per corner. The elaborate digital displays and latest iDrive infotainment system, impressive when everything works correctly, absolutely infuriating when glitches occur, which happens far more frequently than BMW's marketing would ever admit. The engine options are powerful and refined when operating properly, but they're also problematic in ways that become expensive once warranty coverage expires. The turbocharged inline-six is smooth and strong during the warranty period, but turbo systems inherently add complexity, heat, and long-term reliability concerns that naturally aspirated engines simply don't have. The V8 option provides even more impressive performance, along with even more significant problems, with well-documented reports of excessive oil consumption, cooling system failures, and expensive repairs that aren't covered by warranty once you pass the initial coverage period. The interior is undeniably beautiful, with genuinely high-quality materials, supremely comfortable seats, and design that feels thoroughly modern and luxurious. But that beauty and luxury come with price tags that are genuinely difficult to justify through rational analysis. A well-equipped X7 easily crosses $90,000 and can readily approach or exceed $100,000 with popular options. At those stratospheric price points, you're solidly in the range of vehicles that offer comparable luxury with dramatically better reliability and substantially lower long-term ownership costs. Number 5. Chevrolet Blazer EV. GM halted Blazer EV sales weeks after launch, and the used market never forgave it. The Chevrolet Blazer EV launched with strong pre-order interest and competitive pricing that positioned it as an accessible alternative to Tesla's Model Y. What followed is one of the most damaging new vehicle launch stories in recent American automotive history, and its consequences continue reverberating through the used market in 2026 with no signs of rapid resolution. Starting at $44,995 new, the Blazer EV now trades at 38 to 48% of original purchase price after 24 months. Software causing loss of propulsion, complete system shutdowns in normal driving, and charging failures requiring dealer intervention forced GM to halt all new Blazer EV sales, an action with almost no precedent in modern mainstream automotive retail within weeks of first deliveries. But here's the twist. The reputational damage extends well beyond vehicles actually affected by the original software issues. Every subsequent Blazer EV sale carries the shadow of a launch failure, covered by every major automotive outlet and amplified through social media, reaching exactly the technology-forward buyer demographic that electric SUV manufacturers most need to convert. Used market buyers in 2026 are pricing against that documented history, and the discount they apply is severe. What most people don't realize is that GM's aggressive incentive strategy on new 2026 Blazer EV inventory, implemented to rebuild momentum, has established lower price anchors directly suppressing residuals for earlier model years. Buyers considering a used 2024 Blazer EV at $28,000 can access a new 2026 example with substantial manufacturer incentives at a transaction price, making the used vehicle's value proposition difficult to justify on purely financial grounds. And this is where it gets crazy. Independent surveys of used EV buyers show Ultium platform vehicles receiving consistently lower willingness to pay scores than comparable Korean and Japanese alternatives. A brand perception deficit suppressing Blazer EV residuals independently of any specific vehicle quality assessment. The platform's reputation has become a liability that individual model quality improvements cannot overcome quickly enough to arrest the depreciation damage already embedded in current market pricing. Number 4 involves a startup whose vehicles didn't just depreciate, they became financial liabilities of a completely different kind. Number 4. Fisker Ocean. The Fisker Ocean isn't just worthless. Owners can't give them away in 2026. The Fisker Ocean story transcends ordinary depreciation analysis entirely. The forces destroying its value aren't normal market dynamics. They are the direct consequence of its manufacturer ceasing to exist, leaving owners holding vehicles that have lost not merely market value, but warranty coverage, software update pathways, connected services functionality, and manufacturer support infrastructure simultaneously. The Ocean started at $37,499 for the sport trim. In 2026, good condition, low mileage examples are trading at $8,000 to $16,000. Depreciation of 75 to 85% from original purchase price. These aren't damaged or high mileage vehicles. These are well-maintained SUVs being sold by owners who cannot continue operating them without support that ceased to exist when Fisker filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in June 2024. But here's the twist. The value destruction extends beyond depreciation into operational impairment. Software never fully completed at launch has received no updates since bankruptcy, leaving known bugs permanently unresolved. Connected services the vehicle's basic functions depend upon have gone offline without replacement. The Fisker Ocean has become the automotive industry's clearest warning about what happens when innovation ambition outpaces operational reality. Number 3 involves a mainstream brand whose electric comeback vehicle has become one of 2026's worst depreciation stories. Number 3. Nissan Ariya. Nissan's electric comeback vehicle is now one of the worst depreciation stories of 2026. Stop right here, because the Nissan Ariya at number 3 represents something more instructive than the catastrophic events driving vehicles lower on this list. The Ariya's value collapse is driven by something more insidious: a systematic failure to deliver on reasonable expectations in a competitive market, compounded by a manufacturer response widely assessed as inadequate to the severity of the problem it faced. The Ariya started at $41,000 for the base configuration. Used examples now trade at 32 to 42% of original purchase price after 24 to 30 months, significantly below residual value performance of comparable vehicles from Hyundai, Kia, and Toyota in the same competitive class. That gap isn't marginal, it's structural, persistent, and showing no signs of narrowing as newer competitive alternatives continue entering the market with stronger value propositions. This completely changes everything when you understand what Nissan's internal projections for Ariya residual values looked like at launch. The manufacturer priced lease products and certified pre-owned programs based on residual assumptions the actual used market has failed to validate by a margin significant enough to trigger financial provisions within Nissan's own captive finance operation. When a manufacturer's financing arm absorbs losses on lease residual guarantees, the market's verdict on a vehicle's used value is beyond dispute. But here's the twist. The Ariya launched 2 years behind its originally announced schedule, absorbing development costs while competitors used that time to refine their own products. The Hyundai Ioniq 5, Kia EV6, and Tesla Model Y all benefited from those additional development cycles, arriving with stronger software platforms, faster charging architectures, and more resolved driving dynamics. The Ariya entered a competitive landscape that had moved significantly during its delay. And used market buyers make that comparison every single time they evaluate alternatives. What most people don't realize is that Nissan's dealer network has struggled to support Ariya owners experiencing software and connectivity issues with the diagnostic capability that effective resolution requires. Multiple dealer visits for identical recurring problems without resolution appear consistently across independent owner surveys, creating exactly the negative word-of-mouth environment that suppresses used vehicle demand and therefore residual pricing for years beyond the initial ownership period. And this is where it gets crazy. Nissan's own aggressive incentivization of new Ariya inventory has established transaction price anchors, narrowing the gap between new and used examples to a margin many buyers find insufficient to justify purchasing out of warranty. When new and used examples approach price parity through new vehicle incentivization, the used market resets downward, and Ariya owners exiting their vehicles in 2026 are discovering that reset at exactly the wrong moment. Number 2 involves a European luxury SUV whose depreciation rate is costing owners more per month than many people's car payments. Number 2, BMW iX. BMW's electric flagship has lost more value per month than most SUVs cost per year. The BMW iX launched as the most technologically ambitious product BMW had ever brought to market, designed to announce definitively that the world's most celebrated driver's car manufacturer had mastered the electric era. In 2026, the used market's assessment of that announcement is unambiguous, financially quantified, and genuinely devastating for owners who paid MSRP during early availability. Starting at $87,100 for the X-Drive 50 and $108,900 for the M60, the iX now trades at 35 to 45% of original purchase price after 18 to 24 months. An M60 purchased at $109,000 in late 2023 is now wholesale pricing at $52,000 to $58,000, a realized loss of $51,000 to $57,000 in under 2 years on a normally driven, properly maintained vehicle. That figure exceeds the total purchase price of every vehicle on our previous Best SUVs under $35,000 list. But here's the twist. The iX's depreciation stems from a fundamental tension between its premium pricing and actual ownership delivery. Removing physical controls for climate and volume in favor of touchscreen menus generated criticism significant enough that BMW's own team acknowledged the calibration error. Real-world winter range falling 30 to 44% below EPA figures, owners in Canada and northern U.S. states documenting 180 to 220 miles against a rated 324, creates a product performance gap that sophisticated used market buyers price aggressively against without exception. What most people don't realize is that BMW's confirmed next-generation Neue Klasse electric platform, arriving in production vehicles from 2025 onward, has created forward-looking competitive anxiety that suppresses current iX valuations. Buyers evaluating a used iX in 2026 know they're considering first-generation EV architecture at a price the incoming platform will likely undercut while delivering demonstrably superior technology, efficiency, and software sophistication. That future competitive pressure suppresses willingness to pay across the entire current generation iX used market simultaneously. And this is where it gets crazy. BMW's own incentive activity on new iX inventory, including manufacturer-to-dealer support payments and lease rate subsidization, has narrowed the price gap between certified new inventory and used examples to a margin many buyers find insufficient to justify the additional risk of purchasing outside warranty coverage. When that gap narrows sufficiently, the used market's values reset downward across the board. And current iX owners attempting to exit their vehicles in 2026 are encountering that reset at precisely the worst possible moment in their ownership cycle. Number 1 is the most dramatic depreciation story on this entire list. A vehicle that generated years of waiting lists and genuine buyer excitement before delivering a used market collapse nobody predicted. Number 1, Tesla Model X. The SUV that defined electric luxury is now the segment's biggest depreciation disaster. Everything on this list has been financially painful. The ID4's 40% loss, the EQS SUV's 50% collapse, the Fisker Ocean's 80% catastrophe. But the Tesla Model X sits at number 1 not because its percentage loss is the most severe, but because the scale of absolute dollar destruction, combined with the specific nature of the forces driving it, makes its story the most instructive and consequential for current and prospective owners in 2026. Starting at $79,990 for the long range and $107,990 for the Plaid, the Model X now trades at 38 to 50% of original purchase price after 24 to 36 months. A Plaid purchased at $108,000 in 2022 is now wholesale pricing at $48,000 to $55,000. A realized loss of $53,000 to $60,000 on a vehicle many owners purchased as a long-term proposition based on Tesla's historical reputation for strong residual value retention. That reputation no longer reflects market reality. But here's the twist. The Model X's depreciation is primarily driven by Tesla's own pricing strategy rather than product failures or competitive obsolescence. Tesla's repeated price cuts across its entire lineup between 2022 and 2026, implemented to defend market share against Chinese and Korean competition, have established new lower anchors for new Model X inventory that retroactively destroyed earlier owners' residual value assumptions. Owners who paid $108,000 for a 2022 Model X are watching the same vehicle available new in 2026 at $79,990. a $28,000 new vehicle price reduction that immediately and directly suppresses used values for every existing owner simultaneously. What most people don't realize is that Tesla's pricing volatility has created a used market environment where buyers are reluctant to commit at any price that doesn't account for the risk of further new vehicle cuts, making their acquisition immediately underwater. 7 SUVs bleeding value in 2026, and every story carrying a lesson every buyer needs before signing their next purchase agreement. If this video protected your finances, hit subscribe. Torquay Talk breaks down the real automotive numbers every single week. Next video, the 7 SUVs holding their value best in 2026, the complete opposite of today's list and every bit as financially important.